Hello, you beautiful beings from all around the world. I'm Nick Smith, and we have another amazing masterclass for you. So hang tight. We're going to be right back. All right, beautiful beings. I don't even know what to call them, Rose. Do we say beautiful beings? We're going to have to come up with a catchy name.
People is good.
People. We're glad to have you here again. We're in for another beautiful masterclass, and we're joined today by Dominic London. But before we dive in, we're going to do a little housekeeping and just cover a few items. Is that correct, Rose?
Yeah, and really welcome everybody to the Art of Honest Listening with Dominic. And what we're really I noticed today that, in fact, I noticed last week that we've got over 600 members in the Ultimate Birmingham Experience Interest Group. And that's phenomenal. That's 600 people who've been invited and accepted into the group on Facebook. We're going to pop the link in the comments. So if you're not in that group, do come along and join. That is the place to be, to find out more about what the event is about, more engagement with some of the speakers, but also to really get a sense of what being is. If it's something that you've not come across, you're a little bit confused, you've no idea what's going on, come into that group and have a little poke about. And I'm sharing at the moment my journey as I'm reading the Ultimate Coach book again for the 5th time. So I'm there's live people sharing there and sharing pictures and their insights as they go. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to really be aware that the tickets are available now for the event that's running in May. And we've got a number of different offers on, if that helps you commit to coming, because this event is a co-creation. So every ticket that is bought is funding us being able to put the event on. We don't have a budget. That's not a pressure point. That just means you get to be involved and know that your pennies and pounds are going towards creating this experience for yourself, and also fundraising money for the charity that we are hoping to donate to, the Birmingham's Children's Hospital, the auditory unit. So there's a range of different price points available for tickets. We've got an offer at the moment that's £50 deposit. And if you pay that by December the 25th, you can then pay off the rest of your ticket in installments, £125, 3 installments up until April. So we've popped the link. Do go and have a look. There's different price points and different ways of paying available there, because we really want to support you in being able to attend. That's my housekeeping. Is there anything else you think that would be helpful for people to know, Nick?
Well, I think, just remembering, how we're sharing this event, it is about the charity, and we are going to donate money there, but it's more about being. So they're a beneficiary of your being. And one of the things we did before the show today, and this is what we talked about the last time we met as a group, was starting every session, every chapter you read, whether you read one section or another book, to actually go through and read the back cover of the Ultimate Coach book. This is why we're all here, by the way. So the back cover of that book, and then the inside chapters that say before you begin, right? And there's 2 pages right there. And so before you maybe even dive into this fully, while I'm reading the bio here, is just take a moment to really anchor in why you're here. Who would you be if you fully listened to this show from your full potential? What might happen with this event if you approach this event from your fullest potential? And I think that's what Steve Hardison was trying to portray, why he didn't want to write a book in the first place, because he didn't want it to be about him. He wanted it to be about you. And so show up today fully, really listen to this like you've never heard this before. And this is the greatest day of your life because we do have an amazing guest. So Dom, I'm going to pull you on screen here. Anything else outside of that? Rose?
I really appreciate you bringing it back to being. And And I think Dom and I had a conversation about this before we came on here. And I think one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is that Dom is brilliant at talking about being without talking about being, and putting things into a language that is accessible and makes sense, and making it really tangible, you know, because otherwise things get a bit esoteric and a bit out there and a bit woo. And I think like what one of Dom's great gifts, it's not that he's anti-woo, it's that he just if I
That's a new word.
it's just a way, and I've known this since I first spoke to Dom, since we first connected. He has a way of talking about things that could be seen as woo or like spiritual in a very like practical and tangible way that you can apply in your everyday life. And that's really what the crux of any kind of inner personal development work is. It's like, how can this impact me right now and make a difference in my life right now? Because that's what we all want to see. So I really look forward to hearing Dom explore that.
Well, let's dive into it. I'm going to introduce our guest. So we've got with us Dominic London, known as Dom. He's a serial entrepreneur, certified high performance coach with a remarkable journey of transformation. Despite facing challenges such as paranoid schizophrenia and agoraphobia, Dom's resilience led him to create the life of his dreams and empower others to do the same. With over 15 years of dedicated study and practice across various coaching styles, Dom possesses a deep understanding of science-backed techniques in personal development. His coaching approach goes beyond expectations, blending proven methodologies and his own experiential knowledge to offer a transformative experience tailored to each individual's unique needs. Drawing from a diverse clientele, including UFC athletes, C-suite executives, and successful entrepreneurs, Dom consistently delivers exceptional results. His expertise is trusted by Fortune 500 CEOs, Olympians, Grammy award-winning artists, NASA scientists, and government officials. What sets Dom apart is his profound emphasis on embracing the essence of being. So by guiding individuals with lighthearted optimism, he helps them unlock their true potential and achieve remarkable personal growth. And as a keynote speaker, Dom's inspiring journey from adversity to success will leave a lasting impact on your audience. So his story of overcoming challenges and creating a fulfilling life serves as a powerful example of resilience and determination, motivating others to pursue their dreams and embrace their limitless potential. And we're lucky enough to have him on with us for a masterclass today. Dom, welcome to the show.
I'm extremely lucky to be here. So thank you so much.
We're glad.
That introduction was, I was at one point, I was listening, I was like, well, you sound pretty good on paper, you know?
We got to make you look good, but you are amazing at what you do. And our whole purpose here is to really highlight in others their potential, their really limitless potential and their being. And I'm curious for you, what does that mean? You know, people throw around this term being. What does it mean to you to be?
You know, prior to this call, I was conscious and mindful of something. So I appreciate that there's a few questions that get asked. And I was very mindful to not reference the questions prior to coming on and actually speak to what being means to me now. Because for me, being is a place that I come from, and it's moment to moment. And so to answer it simply, for me, being is a shortcut to love and presence and freedom.
Yeah. So it's what's coming from you, right?
Yeah.
So if you're coming from that space, what do you think is the single largest impact that being there, this movement has had on you?
Accessing my own freedom, accessing my own freedom to be me and own that.
So let's dive into that a little bit. What do you mean to be you? Because you just talked about what you're coming from.
Yeah.
So to be you, give us a little sampling of what that means to you. Like, who are you? We gave you, hold on. I'm going to hold for a minute because I just read a bio, right? And there was somebody that says that, identifying as versus identifiers, right? If somebody were to list a list of items like what I just did, right? A list of identifiers. Those are things that in a room, if you heard that, you'd say, oh, they're talking about me, right? But that's beyond identity, right? So those are things you can identify with, but let's go into you and really dive into that. Not the things you're doing or what you're up to or what you've accomplished in life. That's how we tend to identify. But can you dive into that a little bit? Who are you?
I am Dom, I am Dom. I'm very mindful, like, when we're in the being movement and people discuss who are you, and in the book, The Ultimate Coach, I've witnessed individuals say, oh, I've read this and it's inspired me to say, not when a group of individuals say, Steve says to an individual that heard his document, oh, would you like to know my name or do you want to know who I am? So even as you pose that question, and I'm struck with that scenario in my mind, I'm like, yeah, who am I? I am exactly who you create me to be.
Yeah. So there's the things that you've done in your life, right? And there's who you are beyond that expresses and creates all of that in your world. And did you know about the being movement before Steve Hardison, or how did you get introduced to this?
Yeah. So no, I kind of, it was in my pursuit so in 2017, after a long journey of personal development, I kind of found coaching, and I was like, there was this idea that I had. I was reading a bunch of personal development books, and I was applying all of the stuff that the instructions that they were giving, and I was experiencing breakthroughs. I was experiencing, wow, this stuff actually works. So naturally, I was more intrigued. And after a few years of reading these books in the personal development world, self-development, there was a theme that I noticed. And towards the end of the books, the theme was kind of, but if you want to accelerate your growth, you need to invest in a coach or a mentor. And there were some ideas I had in my life at that time. Like, I had these ideas of a coach being an individual that's going to tell me what to do, and being a natural rebel, that didn't sit right with me. I had this idea that it was going to be a very therapeutic session, and they were going to sit with their legs crossed and they were going to be able to read my mind. And I was just full of fear. I was like, absolutely not. I am not getting a coach, right? And that would give you an insight into my understanding of what coaching was at that journey. And
they're going to take away all your freedom, right?
They're going to take it away. They're going to tell me what to do. They're going to see all my dirty secrets I don't want them to know about. Like, I just had this idea of what a coach was, and I was so scared of that. So I was like, I'm not even going to explore that avenue. I'm going to continue chipping away, doing the doing, focusing on the doing and all the tips that I've received results from in my life, and that's going to get me by. But I kept chipping away, and curiosity got the better of me, and I was like, maybe I need to explore this thing called coaching. And this is speaking to kind of how I became aware of Steve and how he came into my awareness. And so I remember it was like maybe late 2016, and I started reaching out to coaches, and I started having enrollment calls or strategy calls, and I was like being in the first conversation with a coach. And I never forget the first call I scheduled, and I was so unfamiliar with technology, and they were talking about meeting online, and I was like, I don't know how to do this. Anyway, I had this call, and my heart was racing, but my mouth was dry, and I was just like, I was so fearful, like I didn't know what to expect. And we had the call, and what do you know? I finished the call, and after the call was finished, I just felt a volcano of feelings, like pride that I had leaned into the fear and the courage and actually had the conversation, just excitement for the possibility of actually, what could be created here. And it wasn't long into the journey of me being coached where I was connected with my desire to serve. So in my previous business and business I still run, I've always had a heart of service. I've always wanted to help. And so for me, it was just like this moment of, wait a minute, I can actually get paid as a possibility to help individuals. And that was my journey into the coaching world. So me being me, if you pop up, you're going to interrupt. Do you want to interrupt real quick?
No. Go ahead. I'm gonna change it up on you.
All right, cool.
Keep going. Yeah.
Me being me, and what I'd learned through my success towards the latter years of struggling, as an entrepreneur, is if you want to be the best, then invest in masterminds, get around the best. And I remember sitting down in my living room with my wife, and I've been going on about this idea of becoming a coach, and she said, I said, you know what, honey, I think I want to do this. And she kind of gave me that look as if to say, oh, here we go again. But she gave me her blessing. And so I was like, right. So I'd done the first thing that comes natural to all of us. And I went to like Dr. Google, and I was like, I need a benchmark, like, something to work towards. And as I'm sharing, I invite listeners to hear what's coming up for them. It's giving you a real insight into who I was being back then, right? And so I'm like, who's the best? I want to beat them. And so I went on Google and I typed in world's best coach or highest paid coach. I needed a benchmark, and an individual called Michael Serwer popped up on Google, and I proceeded to have a call with Michael, and then I hired Michael. That was like my first high level investment financial commitment to coaching. And I'm still speaking to the point, so bear with me. I'm going to make the plane land now.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Keep going.
Yeah, I remember being in conversation with Michael, and at one stage in our coaching, I'm sitting there and he's talking about my coach, Steve Hardison. And I was thinking, why the hell am I with this guy? Like, why am I here? Right? And that's no reflection on Michael as a coach. It's more a reflection on who I was being, at that stage in my journey. And I was like, why am I here? Because I signed up to find the best. I'm on a pursuit to be around the best. And, a lot of individuals in the coaching world, and those that listen that aren't, there's a few names that are just known. Steve Chandler, who's the godfather of coaching. Now, I never knew about Steve Chandler. I just went straight in, trusted Google, and started spending money. But the universe led me to Steve Hardison. So Michael kept talking about Steve, and I was thinking, when this agreement's over, I'm going to go find out about this dude, Steve. And so what I did, I started looking up Steve Hardison. Back then, he was a little more elusive. That's before he was really active on Facebook, and you couldn't really find much about him. So that's how I kind of come to know Steve.
That's amazing. Yeah. As you think of this book, this is kind of the cornerstone of everything that we're doing here, and the book isn't, I knowing Steve doesn't want to put himself on a pedestal, but other people will put him on a pedestal. What he wants to do is put other people on that pedestal and lift them up and show them their potential. And he does that very well. He did that with me in a parking lot in 2009. And my life has never been the same since. So thanks, Steve. You threw me way off course. Right. And the beauty of it, though, is that this book is kind of a representation of what's possible for people, in their lives. And he's given a grand example, or Amy and Alan Thompson gave a grand example of what's possible for people. But why would you recommend somebody read this book, The Ultimate Coach? Why should they do that?
So the first thing that comes to me is that I wouldn't be so fast to recommend they read the book before I introduce them to the concept of listening or honestly listening to what's going on for them. Because when the book came out, I bought loads of copies. I sent them around the world. I gifted them to clients. And, what I realized was, though I gave them clear instructions, and in my opinion, I thought well, they trust me, so they'll just take my word for it, and you know, the impact that the book has had on me. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, at first I was receiving more, you know, disappointing than kind of like them having the same experience as me. And it was kind of and then I realized that actually that if you're going to read the book of being and you're not going to read it as it's as you're invited to, then in my opinion there's no benefit in reading it. There's no benefit at all. There is no power
no
in
point. Yeah,
it's pointless. And so what I found is I invite individuals to have an honest listening. And I think what I mean by that is, you know, when I ask individuals and I inquire, so what is it? It's like, just didn't make sense to me. And I explore a little deeper, like, well, what does that mean? And what I've noticed is when I inquire about what are the judgments that come up, what is the listening, the internal dialogue that's at play when you hold this book or you open this book. And then I feel like, well, that is the area of the highest point of leverage in regards to actually being with an individual and kind of helping them see that, and then inviting them to suspend their disbelief, at least whilst they read the book.
Yeah, interesting. I want to dive into that with you, because the art of honest listening, you know, I think of the word honest means ownership. And I hope you go deeper on this, right? And then listening, you know, we think with our ears, but you're going even beyond that. You're not talking about listening with your ears. You're talking about all that internal stuff that's affecting what you hear in the world. Can you dive into that pretty deep for us?
I mean, I'm not sure. You kind of just gave me a beautiful distinction on the word honest and meaning ownership. So I'm just like in awe of that right now, but I'll do my best, right? So
yeah,
awesome. I guess that's a powerful idea, ownership. And so the way I see listening as well, when I first came into this into contact with this idea that we create for our listening, I struggled with it. I couldn't make sense of it. I was like, yeah, it's too simple. And certain judgments I had about the idea, what I've realized in my own experience and in my sharing with others and seeing them, you know, awake to the possibility that there's something in it, is actually it's the art of, or the honesty of listening to the inner dialogue that you have going on in relation to what you're in communication with, whether it be listening, whether it be seeing. And it really is being more aware of an internal dialogue. So I see listening more now as a not sound that comes in, but a frame that which I create to look out of.
So it's something you see from, right?
Yeah.
So it's you know, in the work that I do, I dive into the inner world of, you know, what's going on in here, where did that come from, and how did you create yourself? And a lot of us were handed down. You know, I come from a large family, 11 kids. I was used to hand-me-downs, and most of us are walking around in our lives in our hand-me-downs and our perceptions of the world based on whatever our family or culture or society handed us. And then we listen, like you're saying, from that point of view. And so you're really diving into that inner world of who do you think you are, right? If I had asked somebody that question, who do you think you are? They might get a little offended. Like, what do you mean? Who do I think I am? But how would you answer that? Like, who do you think you are? And where are you coming from when you're talking to somebody about this way of listening?
Who do I think I am as it relates personally to that question? Who do I think I am?
However you want to take that. You take it on. Yes.
Well, like I said earlier, when you said, who are you? Like, you know, it's like,
well, I don't mean for you, but people have that listening of, you know, when you say, who do you think you are? Well, some of us get a little defensive around that. Right. But when you really ask that question, who do you think you are? It's really, to me, a chance to really dive into that inner world. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you dive into that a little bit? Kind of expound on that? Sure.
Let's unpack it. So for me, again, it would, even to allow such a question to serve us, we need to be open to holding it in a way that we can explore that, like, who do we think we are? Because I think as it relates to who we choose to be is based on ideas and judgments or creations that we create, that, you know, I'm this or I'm that. And I think people kind of don't grasp the power of those creations, and actually the prison that they create for every one of us when we're in creation of the ideas of who we think we are.
Yeah, I remember there was a statement by Rich Litvin. He said, vision isn't where you're going, it's what's coming from you. And this really ties into that. Your entire world is an expression of what's going on in you, right? And man, I hope I'm not like stealing where you want to go with this. I love this. That idea of listening isn't this at all. And here we are providing for a charity that is about creating this, right? But it never gets that doesn't get into here. That's what this is for, right? That's what you're doing is to help people really get into that listening. Does that create your world? Like what does that do for somebody? Why should they listen? What would that do for their challenges in their life? How would that help them overcome those?
I mean, I'm not entirely sure, because it's unique for each individual, but I think what people often make the mistake of doing is dismissing those their thinking and the way that they create themselves. And you know, you mentioned the charity that this amazing event's being you know, supporting, and it's funny because as I was kind of pondering on these ideas and watching videos of people here for the first time and connecting to the emotion of that, like, wow, you know, we take for granted these little things like hearing and seeing, and we and the same way we kind of take them for granted, I think sometimes we take for granted these ideas that we create about ourselves and the impact that they have on us at the level of being. And so my invitation is to actually slow down and don't skip the little things. And I can share a story that comes to mind just to kind of maybe help it connect a little more, or at least for you to get an idea of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, let's do that. Will you dive into that story?
Yeah, sure. And it's very, very everyday. It's very everyday. And I have some deep, mad, crazy miracles I could share. And I'm just going to share something that's an everyday thing that kind of gives an example as to what I'm pointing to. So my wife, you know, my wonderful wife, she's always complaining that I drink bottles of water around the house. Not anymore, by the way. Let me just clarify. But it was a time that she was complaining. And I remember I had about 3 half-drunk bottles of water beside my bed. And I don't know why I get funny with water. And I don't know if you've seen that movie Signs, and there's that like girl, and she's like, it's contaminated. Have you seen this movie? Are you familiar?
Signs? Yeah. Yeah.
She's like, it's contaminated. I kind of feel like that girl sometimes. So I'm like, my wife's like, why do you keep leaving these half bottles of water around? And I'm like, well, it's just contaminated. You know, I've used it already. So anyway, so I remember one time. Anyway, I'm mooching around the house and I'm getting ready, and then I come in the room. My wife's out, and I see like 3 bottles of water beside my bed, and they're all various levels of consumed. So I go, got to move that because she's just going to complain again. And I proceeded to pick up the bottles. And in that moment, as I was with that, I realized I'm creating my wife as she's complaining. And it's such just a simple story of kind of like how I connect with these, and we can all connect as a possibility to this automatic thinking that goes on that we're often just unaware of or we dismiss. And actually our being lives at that level for a lot of us, and we don't realize it. And so I realized that, and I chose to create her differently, and I chose to create the act of moving the water as an act of love and in service. And actually, you know, my wife is just sharing something that frustrates her, and it's my duty, and in love and in service, I want to move these bottles for her, opposed to, she's just complaining, let me move these bottles to stop her complaining.
Yeah. Maybe so you would have a certain way of experiencing her in the world, but she wouldn't be necessarily what you were experiencing. She was a projection of what you thought she might be. I think of Lisa Feldman Barrett. We talk about this, and she says that we feel anxiety when we feel like we're not measuring up to the ideals that we think others have for us. And if you think about it in the context of what you're talking about here, is that we create these ideals. We create this imagining of what somebody might be thinking or who they might be. And then we project that on them and act as if they are that. And then we experience them as that. They have no idea that that's even playing in your mind, right? I think it was Byron Katie that said something about that, right? You're judging somebody for the movie you're playing in their mind, right?
Yeah, and I'd go too far as say that's what we're often unaware of ourselves.
Yeah, we don't explain that. Maybe I don't hear that properly.
I feel like, at least for me, that being more honest about my listening and what's being created, it's like, the whole all my judgments are illuminated, and it's like, whoa. So I can be, for those that are familiar with the document and the being work in the book, like, I can be that I am love. And, it's almost like there's no connection with it. I'm not even aware or seeing that, well, I'm not love. 90% of my thinking towards my wife or my children is actually not love. And oftentimes I feel that can fly under the radar and just be dismissed as just, that's nothing. And my invitation is to explore that as a possibility, that actually that is something. And oftentimes it's the silly stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, where did you land on this? How did you land on listening out of all the things? So I know you went back to sharing the book, and people are having these experiences and they're saying, I don't get it. I don't get what you're talking about. And you're finding out, well, you're not hearing it the way I'm hearing it. Brandon Craig is another great one around this. He teaches the ontological approach to mindset, and the idea that we have a certain way of understanding things, but we don't tend to understand things from the point of view of the person over on the other side of the fence. We try and understand them from our point of view. And here you're sharing this amazing gift with people. And they're saying, I don't get it. Like, I have a 1-star review on my book online, and you go and you read their review and you're like, oh, I see where they're coming from when they read that book. Right. Mm-hmm. And then you see, something like this is phenomenal, changing the world for people. And somebody will read it and they're like, that's a 1-star book. And where they're coming from when they read that book. Right. And so to say, your clients read this book and they're coming back and saying that, was that the first time you had a concept of listening, or was there something before that really opened up your mind to this construct that you're creating for us today?
Oh, shame on them. 1 star. How dare they? No, it's a great question. And I don't think it began anywhere other than like reflecting on where I was at and frustrations that I was facing. So I've often found, like, I know Rose referenced that, like, I'm not anti-woo or esoteric. In fact, I feel like I'm one of the most spiritual guys and woo-woo guys that I actually know. Where I find that I get slightly triggered, or I notice a resistance in me, is when you get stuck in the land of spirit and woo, and there's no tangible results. And so for me, I'm just mindful of that for me, and that's where I'm at with my journey. So I hope nobody's offended by that, but I really am grounded in action. And so for me, when we talk about the listening, I even on my own personal journey with being, like, this is a masterclass, and I'm so honored and privileged to be a guest, but I haven't mastered it. It's like I'm still in development. I'm still learning. And so as it relates to my being, I just realized, when I was kind of exploring and reading, and there was almost, I felt a separation from what I'm going to call the dad on the school run. and I don't have a conversation with him and say, hey, about this thing called being. I be who I be, and he will experience me in the way he creates me, and that's out of my control. But what I realized was, the point I'm trying to make is what I started realizing when I was going through creating my document and working on this self-forgiveness process, or just being for me in my own life and my experience. I realized I was stepping out of speaking things as they was, because I was in danger of creating with my words. And as a possibility, I mean, it's funny, they're only selectively powerful. So what I started realizing was, like, for example, I might be putting something off, and I could say, who would I need to be to file those taxes? And then I'll ask myself the question, well, who are you being? And sometimes the words might come up and it's just a lazy prick. Oh, that's not right. You shouldn't say that. That's not very nice. And so for me, it just drove me inside to start actually analyzing, wait a minute, who's that? What aspect of my being, where am I coming from? And I'm still on that journey. I'm still, even the art of honest listening. So I love to create spontaneously and speak to just what's present for me in the moment. Why? Because I'm learning as I'm sharing. Like, it's not rehearsed, and I'm like, oh, that was good. That's gonna serve me, right? But like, even when I had the conversation with Rose and was like, what's the title? For me, where I was at in that moment, I was just exploring my internal dialogue and actually my internal listening that was creating my world, and I was kind of unaware of it. I was choosing to deem it as nah, that's not important. That's just the negative person that lives inside of me.
Yeah, which is a form of listening. I love the example of, my document says I am loving kindness, right? So in my document, that's my commitment to be that. And then I go driving on the highways in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm flipping somebody off, right? And so I'm not loving kindness, not in any way. And what tends to happen is there's a gap between the two, right? There's a dissonance between the two. And what tends to happen is we don't like that discomfort, so we justify ourselves for flipping them off rather than returning to kindness, right? So in that justification of ourselves, we allow ourselves to have that different behavior that we don't want to have because we've justified it, or we have a story that makes it okay, right? Versus moving back over to our document like you've done. But none of that can happen without you even noticing or hearing yourself. Like, if I don't hear myself and I'm like, I'm flipping somebody off, I'm not being kindness. I want to be kindness. I don't need to cause additional harm. I'm going to move back over to kindness versus that guy was an asshole, right? They're two different things. So how would you address that with somebody if they're really looking at, they're listening? Sometimes we don't even hear ourselves, right? We don't even know what we're thinking or who we are on the inside. And can you speak to that? Does that make sense?
I'll speak to how it occurs to me. It makes sense. Yeah. I'll share what came up when you were sharing about the dissonance or the dissonance between, the flipping off and the document, or the created life who I declare myself to be. What I find is one of the most one of the traps or the pitfalls is then when you've realized that the dissonance is there, you then get stuck in the middle of that and start trying to work out why that happened. And that's not what I'm speaking to, because I feel like it could be coming across that way.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Clarify, go into where you're at. So continue. Yeah. This is perfect.
So you get stuck in that, oh, why did that happen? Or the judgments, the self-judgments come up. Oh, that proves I'm not that. That proves I'm not love, and we can fall into that. And again, that's where the internal listening that I would invite everybody to listen. Yeah, it's that in my experience through capturing those judgments and, and being with that, is like, that's where the gold's at. That's where the gold's at. And I find oftentimes and when people are even, Ankush, anybody that shared out, Ankush shared a powerful post when he started working with Steve about the journaling that he'd done and filling up a notebook. I don't know anybody that hasn't worked with Steve that hasn't been part of the process to a degree where you actually audit the self-judgments.
Yeah.
And so in that space of dissonance where that happens and that happens, I feel there's gold there, not to overlook that, because there will be judgments about self. And all of that is creation. All of that is grist for the mill and beautiful data to work with.
I like that. I like that because it's an opportunity. It's I like the word interested, right? The word interested means in between. So when you're in between something, that's where the gold is, right? You're interested in it. But it's really nothing really happens till you're in, right? Or you start to lean into your document or your way of being. Nothing really happens because you're in the in between. And so the idea is we justify ourselves to stay in the in between. Like that's what I love about what you just shared right there is we allow ourselves. Somebody said we accommodate, we allow, or we promote, we create, or we allow everything in our lives. We create, we promote, or allow everything in our lives. And so that in between, if we do one way or the other, we're creating it, promoting it, or allowing it to be there. And it could get, and that's not what the conversation is about. But if you don't know that's happening in yourself or other people, then you don't really have an opportunity to grow. Is that accurate, or do you have another way of seeing that?
No, I think you just created it perfectly for me to connect to myself. I love it. It's very accurate. It's very accurate. Yeah. If I would add anything to that, it is at least I witness with clients I work with. This is the space that they're stuck in most of the time.
So they're in that justified area. And what you're offering here is when you can wake up to that, then you can do something about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Am I hearing you? I want to make sure I'm hearing you.
No, absolutely. I think I know you are hearing me. Absolutely. I feel heard. I feel heard, Nick. So, and you know, I'm hearing myself as well right now. So this is something that I'm just enjoying and being part of. So if you feel like a disconnect or we're not on the same page, then please.
No. I want to make sure because like it's a beautiful topic. I love that you chose this out of all the things you could have talked about, Dom. You choose the art of honest listening. And which is so much beyond, it's beyond the hearing. It's beyond, you know, the cochlear implants. It's beyond anything like that, sign language, visibility, anything like that. It's that inner world. And to really have an awareness of what's going on in your inner world and who you think you are, it affects everything out here. You know, it's the acorn and the oak tree. The oak tree is already in the acorn, but it has to be expressed from the acorn, right? It has to come out of that acorn, but it was already programmed in there. And what we tend to do is we keep ourselves small. We keep ourselves shrunk and we do it by who we think we are.
Yes. Yeah. It's so beautifully put and concise. Thanks for that. One thing that came up when you were sharing was one of the honest listening, and like I said, for me, one aspect of listening is it's outward. It's not inward. It's what's being projected. Is sharing when you catch yourself in that, sharing that with others, speaking it out into the world, honestly, vulnerably, unfiltered, is one of the most profound ways I've found to rid yourself of it, to find liberation, to connect back with love, to honor the innocence.
Yeah, that is so powerful right there. There was a video I watched the other day of a gentleman. He said that the most powerful measurement that they had of any energy coming off a human was authenticity.
Wow.
Not love. You would think love or fear or anything like that. Authenticity had the highest measurement out of everything.
Oh, wow. That's powerful. Never heard that before, but I can feel into the excitement of that. And I feel, you know, I've heard the saying that, you know, authenticity, being authentic about your inauthenticities. And I think that kind of lends itself to that. So I think one of the things where I've found more freedom is that I'm very open. Like if you ask me anything, I'm willing to share. I also had this desire once upon a time, right, that I wished I wish that we could all have like an LCD on our head, and it would project exactly what we're thinking at any moment in time. I wonder how many individuals would subscribe to that, and like, you know, because I feel like through that deep, honest listening, that deep, honest sharing, you create liberation, right? And then you get to connect with how insignificant some of these things that drive our being are.
Yeah, mine would be a banner of dad jokes and dark humor. It might get me canceled.
I agree. I think I think there's a lot that goes on up there, right? That might get us canceled, but I'll
hang on to that. So, you know, they say anywhere from 30,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day, somewhere between 50 and 70 is what they say. And that's a lot of thoughts, right? Too many for us to latch onto. But who you're listening as tells you which of those thoughts to pay attention to, right? So you're listening, that who you think you are tells you which of those you should pay attention to. And that's what we do. And that expresses in the world. And I think it was Stephen McGee that said, you know, we don't look for the truth in the world. We look for agreement. So we figure out who we think we are, and then we look for that in confirmation in the world around us. And so that 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day is a lot. It's too many to pay attention to. And you're the one that determines what's important by your listening. Then you start to latch onto and create that in your world. And it shows up as confirmation that you're right. So like Steve Hardison will talk about, you know, I have a truth and you have a truth and somebody else has a truth and we're all right. Yeah. There's 3 different truths on the same subject. Can you speak to that a little bit?
What part of it, Nick?
Well, just the listening and our perceptions of the world, you know, our expressions in the world. Does that give you anything to go on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, even as you were sharing and we was talking about that honest listening, and it's your truth, it's my truth. What's being communicated is not what's being understood. What's being listened to is being listened to through a filter. And how much of it is listening, you know, with your whole heart. Steve Hardison done a podcast with BNS, and there was one snippet that he recorded about how to listen from heart and not listening from agree or disagree, or who is this guy, or do I trust him? Is he right? Is he wrong? Mm-hmm. And I feel that that's a practice that we cultivate and continue to cultivate moving forward. And so as a possibility, everyone is speaking their truth as it occurs to them in that moment. And I think if we and I feel that's almost the most limiting thing you could do for yourself and for the world.
It is to listen from your filters or your judgments.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see that. Because you're really hearing from who you are.
Yeah.
Huh. So to listen from the heart to you, that signifies really listening, full on listening, like really suspending all judgment and just hearing. Huh.
Yeah. And even as you said that, it kind of triggered me and I cued it, and I was listening more from the heart to that statement you just made, and the experience of you speaking was different immediately.
That's funny because I heard you hearing me hearing you. I just you know, just a profound topic, the listening, because, you know, we hear the term being, but your being is triggered by your listening, which is truthfully who your being is triggering the listening. And so it's this kind of a vicious cycle. And so when somebody's reading this book, the TUC, and you know, they're really listening from that point of view from themselves of who they could be. Are they truly really diving into that? Or is it from some other listening that you're reading that book, or even this podcast? Everybody's going to come out with something different here. They're going to hear what they needed to hear today, right? Regardless of what you and I say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why when you asked about who would I recommend the book, for me, you know, who would I recommend be at this event? Like everybody that has a pulse and that's a human that wants to experience something transformative for themselves. but I'm really mindful in honoring something that's present for me, and that is really like encouraging and role modeling and inviting individuals to actually open their heart fully, because I think for me that's really where it lands, because there's a difference between saying you're open and embodying open listening. There's the idea and the concept of being open and being willing to read the book about me, and then when you open the book and you go, what the fuck is this about? Pardon my French. This is a silly idea. This guy's Steve's kooks. And you keep that to yourself. Share that with whoever's giving you the book. Have an open conversation about that. Be open to seeing that that's your creation, and what would happen if you was to surrender those ideas and those beliefs. And I think that's where a lot of the work is for me, at least as it relates to being, is really a primary point of leverage. And that's just for me personally, my experience, and I'm sure others have their experience as well.
I like that. I mean, it's a fairly safe space to speak from, is our own experience, right? And to have that conviction for what you believe is powerful too. You know, you have a way of seeing the world that is yours and uniquely yours, but you're also open to the idea that you might not be seeing it the way it really is, or the way somebody else might be seeing it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another impact the work and the Book of Being has had on me, is I was very absolute in my thinking, and that was creating a negative impact on my life. Everything was all in. There's only one way, you know. And what I've found is that, like, being introduced to the concept of being has really helped open me up to realize, no, that there's the way that gives me the most freedom and access to serve at my highest and connect to my freedom and my love and my charisma. And that's true for me. And my biggest desire is to help others, you know, self analyze how to unlock that for them in whatever way that shows up, and whatever's true for them.
You're almost saying it like the listening is almost like a fingerprint, right? There will never be two listenings that are the same.
Oh,
right?
yes. Yes.
It would be like going to somebody and saying, you've got a stupid fingerprint.
Yeah.
It's like, there's not another fingerprint like it, right?
I love that. When Steve talks about the document and you know, you putting frosting on, it's like putting icing on top of you know, dog poop. And one time I remember I was stuck with the document early on in this work, and I kind of did what Marina did in the book. I didn't know about the book at that time. This was early on. And I said to Steve, I messaged him and said, I can't access my own document. Would it be okay if I access, can I use yours for now? Because when I read yours, I feel something different in me, and can I use that? And anyway, he called me, he said, call me as soon as you can. And he basically, like, in true Steve fashion, it was love. It was kind of polarizing. And it depends on my listening. Again, because sometimes I've spoke with Steve and I'm like, this guy's a narcissistic, you know, fill in the blank, not a nice word. So again, that's created by me, right? But back to the point without digressing. And he said to me, and this is like the fingerprint, our listening is so unique to us. And when he was talking about the document, you can't just take those words, like there's work that needs to be done. And he said, you know, your eye, you see your eye, that's unique to you. It's like, you know, your fingerprint. And so that you use fingerprint, for me, it kind of deepens that connection to, no, our listening is as unique as our fingerprint. And it's not as collective as we might assume, because we all have this universal power of knowing what everybody's thinking. Yeah, you know, I knew Nick was thinking that. And just because one person agrees with you, it kind of gets locked into our psyche as, yeah, that's just the way the world is. There are kind of social norms. And my invitation is to try and think outside of that box and get used to stepping outside of that and create a listening that serves you, that will give you access to reading the book about you. And it won't just give you access to reading the book about you, it will give you access to seeing everything in your life differently.
That's beautiful. I want to ask you this. You know, we've covered quite a bit today, and I think the concept of listening is something that we could do like 20, 30, 100 shows on. It's such a powerful concept. But if there was a question that you wish you would have been asked tonight or today, or tomorrow, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. What question would you want to be asked, and what would your answer be?
Oh, nothing comes to mind right now. Out of the infinite possibilities, like I generally, nothing comes to mind.
It just, yeah. And let's let it maybe sit for a second. But
sure.
and hang on to it, because it might come up before the end of the show here. But as a recap, why this topic? As a recap for the person on the other side of the screen, because there's somebody here watching you right now. Why this, and what would you say to them?
Why this topic? Because there was a call that I had not so long ago, and the speaker liaison, Rose, asked for a topic. And I explained that I don't have a topic. And as I was sharing that, I shared that at the moment, I'm really present with and exploring my listening as it relates to what's really going on in my head, and having the courage to actually start journaling this stuff out, and really being with it objectively and seeing, what's that about? And I felt that would be a good topic to explore. It's generally how I create. I feel into it, and I'm aware, there might be like maybe this is like the time to kind of round up with a crescendo of this like deep insight. But honestly, it was just what was present for me at that moment in time, and it's what's present for me now in my creation, in my own being.
So good. So good. Because Dom as a being was present with this idea of honest listening.
Yeah.
And this is just an expansion of that. And tomorrow he might be present with something else. So it's not like somebody's going to go in and say, hey, yeah, Dominic London. Yeah. The listening coach. No. Right. It's Dominic London present with the art of honest listening. Right. Yeah. So does that bring up a question for you? Does that bring up something else that you would want to explore before we wrap up here?
Just what's present for me is how grateful I am to be selected as an individual to contribute to this event as a speaker or a panel member, and how this being part of the London event, the London experience, and now even being part of this, like realizing, actually, guess what? There were, up until a few weeks ago, I wasn't really being a champion for this event. I wasn't being a stand for this event. And what I realized was there was a lot of judgments I had about individuals, about myself, about what should be and what isn't. And so when I talk about honest listening, I came to that realization, and something was awoke in me, and that was that, this event, the idea of this event, the idea of being, has shifted my life beyond measure and continues to. And I'm excited and can't imagine the shifts I'm going to continue to create, both in my work with Steve and in my work with the community and on myself. And I'm just so grateful. I can't even express, like, it's like a dream. Oftentimes I'm like, I pinch myself. I'm like, why isn't everyone so excited as me? I feel like this is a dream for me, and I'm really just in awe and almost like childlike about the whole experience and the profound insights and shifts I get from being part of the experience, and from reminding myself to listen honestly to myself and connect with the truth of who I am, and to show up from that space. And honestly, I just feel so privileged and so honored. And my dream and my biggest desire is that anybody listening, that there's something that was shared, not that I was shared to teach or be a master or an expert, just being, and there's something ignited in them so they can commit to joining this journey. Because the Ultimate Experience Birmingham, you said in the last masterclass, it starts today. for me, the ultimate experience Birmingham started the moment Steve came into my consciousness, and this is nothing more than the universe continuing to unfold. And man, I don't know. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I think it's amazing. Thank you for what you've shared today. I mean, what a fun exploration, right? To sit with somebody just in pure conversation around a concept and a construct is phenomenal. Rose, did you gain some insights today on that?
I've been sitting just grinning, like in the background. It's been gorgeous. And thank you so much. Thanks for sharing everything that you have and being so honest in how you've been expressing how you experience yourself in each moment, because I think that's the bit that is easy for us to miss and step over, you know. Like, oh, I'm creating this right now in real time and it's okay. And look what's been created. And I think it's sort of is speaking and it's an example. So thank you. Thank you. I've really enjoyed listening to both of you. Thank you so much.
So as we wrap up, Dominic, anything else you want to share before we close?
There is one.
Yeah.
It just came up as I was listening to Rose, and
excellent.
This is the woo-woo side of me, and I'm going to celebrate it, but it's more of an intuitive nudge to share. Maybe somebody watching or somebody who will watch. And it relates to the document and something I experienced in the bath the other night. Generally, I have my biggest insights in the bath. I don't know why, but I was playing with my document. I was saying, and something I noticed, I was talking to myself. I do that a lot, by the way. And if nobody does it, I invite you to try it. It's pretty cool. And so I'm talking to myself. My wife's used to it, and I'm having this conversation, and I'm like, I need to tighten up those finances. You know, there's money coming in, and I want to start. You know, and I'm a bit lazy. You know, I've been a bit lazy recently as it relates to the gym, and then for some reason, you know, my mind was like, and I was reciting some of my document, like I am love, I am respect. And I realized in that moment, the energy and the being that was saying I am lazy and I am this and I am that. When I started saying the document, it felt false. And it's almost like these alarm bells went off. Like, who are you being, dude? Like, is that like, it's not an act. This isn't something that I am love. It's like, no, I don't feel like that. And I don't know who this is for, but it's for somebody. And so I leaned back into the negative self-talk I had, or the, you know, not so optimistic. And I started speaking my document, not from a pessimistic place, but from that energy that was aligned with my authentic self. I am love. I am respect. I am quantifiable value. And all of a sudden, my physiology shifted in that subtle nuance. And I realized in my own listening, I was putting on a voice when I was saying my document. No wonder I was not connected to it as much sometimes, you know. And that's it. That's my final.
That's authentic. That's perfect. So great way to wrap up. Again, just another pin in the pad, basically, for listening. How important it is. So just thank you so much. For those that are joining us, we will continue to do these master classes leading right up to the event in Birmingham. And for the Tribe of Giants, you know, that are here, go join the interest group. The link is right here in the comments. And for anybody that's in the Ultimate Coach group, there's over 10,000 members there. There's 4,200 members in the Tribe of Giants. Come join this community, join the interest group. Make sure you sign up for that. Share it with your friends, family, grab your tickets. You are going to make an impact in other people's lives by buying your ticket, but really you're buying this ticket for you. So when you go to buy your ticket, you're going to experience something you've never experienced before, which is to recognize how much power you actually have. And our vision with this event is to help you see that. That's the vision of what Steve's trying to do. That's what we're all trying to do here. And so thank you for being a part of this. Make it an amazing day. Like we say in the Tribe of Giants, make it a giant one. And we will see you in the next video.